How's it going, everybody? My name is JustJarrod, but you can just call me Jared, your one-stop shop for legendary loot news, and today we are talking about an upcoming action RPG called Wolcen Lords of Mayhem. And by upcoming, I mean the full release of Wolcen is literally in a couple days on February 13th. I've had the early access and now beta version for quite a while now, and I'm finally getting this video done and out, and I'm very excited to finally talk about Wolcen, as I'm very pumped for the full release because early access and the beta has shown a ton of awesome potential. Let's talk about the loot in Wolcen, then at the end I'll briefly talk about some other things I like about the game, but first, what's the most important and most addicting? The loot. There's no gimmick in Wolcen when it comes to the loot. It works just how all the popular ARPGs work. You kill enemies, you get loot. The tougher the enemy, the challenge, the modifiers, etc., the higher chance of better loot. That being said, it isn't like Diablo 3's loot. In Diablo 3, basically the higher level you are, the further you've progressed, the more loot you find, not necessarily the better loot. In Wolcen, at least the beta version, loot does in fact rain from the sky how you'd expect, but it's not hundreds and hundreds of legendaries like in Diablo 3. It actually takes time to find the good gear, and yes, it's still based on luck and magic find, but in my opinion, that's the best way. That's what keeps players coming back for more when they don't know what or when they're going to find that next unique item. It could come from anywhere at any time. Wolcen's loot progression seems pretty spread out, and that's something you don't see in a lot of recent loot games. Loot of all rarities are so frequently thrown at you nowadays, I'd much rather see a loot system like what we saw with Diablo 2. Uniques were super hard to find, but they were worth the wait. They actually make an impact. Hopefully Wolcen can offer something along those lines. It's kind of hard to make a case for if loot in Wolcen makes an impact because the endgame activities are a bit limited in the beta version, but at least loot progression feels nice. The beta version lets you play through one of 3 acts and gives you access to 2 endgame activities, and the highest rarity items called uniques I've only had drop from said endgame activity. During the entire first act of the game, I only had 3 legendary items drop, and those were very near the end of the act. Legendary items are the tier below uniques. So if the early access and beta loot progression is anything like the full game, I think people who enjoy meaningful loot progression will be pleased. Before we jump into loot slots and what loot actually looks like and does in Wolcen, I want to point out another thing that Wolcen does right. Loot importance. What do I mean by that? Well, essentially in most loot games, once you get super high in level and you start to create a build or whatever, you blast through enemies with little to no resistance, ignoring every item that drops unless it's of a high rarity. You're just searching for legendaries and nothing else. In the early access version of Wolcen, lower rarity loot doesn't seem to completely lose its importance once you start finding legendaries or unique items. Yellow items, also known as rare gear, still are important and totally viable. My character's gear consists of legendaries, uniques, and rares. Some rares that I find are better than the legendaries, better for my character, my skills, my build, etc., and that's so refreshing. It feels like such a waste when loot games leave behind over half of the loot because they become impractical to use, and then you end up just mindlessly running through dungeons only looking for the purple or orange bright beam of light to appear. At least in the beta version of Wolcen, a lot of the gear still feels important even at endgame. Hopefully this progresses into the full game because it would allow a ton more build diversity and build options versus just chasing the unique rarities and having the unique rarity builds be the sole strongest way to play. And if you're wondering why I'm skipping all the yellows in the background gameplay, it's because I'm trying to get some footage of legendaries and uniques actually dropping for this video. It took forever. Okay, let's actually look at the loot now. Sounds good? Great. The gear slots in Wolcen are as follows. Helmet, left shoulder, left glove, right glove, chest, belt, pants, boots, 2 rings, amulet, main hand, and offhand. Lots of slots. Love it. The addition of 2 separate slots for each shoulder and glove piece adds for more customization, which is always good to have in ARPGs. The rarities are common white items, blue is magic, yellow is rare, orange is legendary, and purple, the highest rarity, are unique. Uniques are in fact the only items that look, well, unique. Each unique gear piece is different and looks very different from the other lower tier items. They usually do something really cool or heavily focus on a specific damage type, and they have some flavor text on them giving you some lore or backstory. Each gear piece also has a quality rating on them in the form of 1 to 5 stars, and if I'm being completely honest, I'm not 100% sure what this quality rating means in terms of stats. I thought they complemented the rarity, meaning that common items were 1 star, magic were 2 stars, rares were 3, etc, but I found a few rares that were 2 stars, so I'm not sure what exactly the quality rating means, as there's no durability mechanic in Wolcen as of right now at least. My favorite unique gear piece I've found is this warhammer called Soulsbane. It deals a ton of frost damage, has 40% freeze chance, and gives me a lot of frost resist. It also looks hella rad, and he's the best part of my character. Two-handed giant melee weapons are my favorite, so I can't wait to find more unique ones in the full game. As well as these massive two-handed bashing and smashing machines, in the full release of Wolcen you'll be able to find and equip 1- and 2-handed swords, axes, and hammers, pistols, shields, bows, staffs, daggers, and offhand catalysts. Wolcen also has a gem and socket system like other ARPGs have. Gems drop pretty regularly, and socketing different gems gives you different bonuses depending on the gem, the tier of the gem, and what it's socketed into. Besides gold, the last items you'll see drop as a form of loot, at least in the beta, are Enaraks. Enaraks are your spells. Once you find one, you can learn it and then you know it forever, and there's a bunch to find, level up, and modify. In Wolcen, you have open character customization. You don't pick a class that you have to follow. You can start out wielding 2 pistols, then change up how you want to play, and end up utilizing 2 daggers instead. You find spells from loot drops, and you choose whatever passive skills you want on the pretty sizable passive tree. You can play however you want to play with no class restrictions. As far as item affixes go, there's a ton just like you'd expect. You've got bonuses to attributes, damage added to spells, elemental resist, critical hit damage, critical hit chance, dodge chance, movement speed, attack speed, stamina regen, health regen, free chance, burn chance, resource conservation, life leech, magic find, and cooldown reduction, just to name a handful, with plenty more coming in full release. As of the writing of the script, I've found 5 different unique gear pieces. I had a lot of duplicate uniques drop, but that's mainly because there's a limited amount in the beta. We talked about Soulsbane already, let's look at the others I've managed to find. James's Tall Tale is a rogue helmet that looks like a stylized pirate hat. This headgear increases projectile damage by 25%, which doesn't necessarily help my character's build, but it also gives a nice benefit to melee damage from the bonus to projectile damage. Honestly, I just like having a pirate hat, so that's why I don't part with it. Vanity's Plea is a sword that deals frost damage and has a sweet icicle effect on the blade. It has a large chance to freeze just like my warhammer does. It also has life leech on frozen enemies, which is a cool combo. Get it? Cool combo? Because it's frost damage. That wasn't on the script. I'm done. It also has a plus 10% damage against burning targets, so with a fire dealing spell, you can make it a nice fire and ice build maybe. Quintet of Sundowns is a unique shield that has a whopping plus 25% to health, plus 25% to all resistances, 5 to all attributes, and the attributes in Wolcen being ferocity, toughness, agility, and wisdom. This shield allows the bearer to also cast sacred spells that they may not have been able to cast previously. 3 Crowns Brooch is an amulet that has a bunch of speed-related affixes, stamina regen, agility, dodge chance, movement speed. I essentially had this on to make up for the lack of agility that my build has. Those are the 5 uniques I've been able to find so far. It's very cool to see them drop in game 2. The purple light beams are awesome. Props to the devs for making the loot beams and loot drop animations very cool. Seeing the orange legendaries drop is also very exciting. Legendaries don't have the unique styles that uniques have and don't have unique affixes, but they usually come with more affixes than rares do, and once again, they're not easy to come across. Wolcen definitely has the potential for that loot addiction we all know and love from other ARPGs. Just in the beta, I'm always like, will this be it? Will this be the big enemy that finally gives me a new unique? Will this random mob finally drop a better upgrade to my belt slot? And if not, I keep trudging along, hoping and hoping for that next super rare drop. I'm loving every single minute of it so far. I'm very, very excited and hyped for the loot in Wolcen. The release version of Wolcen will have crafting, which will probably serve some role in the endgame. There will be a transmutation forge in the endgame where you can basically recycle an unused item into a totally new one. There will also be very cool transmogrification systems and armor tinting systems. Here's a small glimpse at what that looks like. As far as post-launch loot goes, we know that Wolcen will eventually have pets, so that's another loot aspect. Maybe we'll be able to find pets or equip our pets with gear. Who knows? As far as I can tell, we don't know much about pets besides them coming sometime post-launch. And that's most of what we know about the loot and loot aspects in Wolcen Lords of Mayhem. As far as other things that I personally like about Wolcen, I love how the game looks and feels. Wolcen absolutely looks like a next-gen ARPG. I have to play the game on low settings, and that's also what you're seeing in the background, but that's because my PC isn't too great, and I'm currently working on saving up to build a new one, but I've watched other people play on high settings, and the game looks fantastic. The lighting, the animations are crazy cool, the weapon combos and style of the game just look so good. Wielding my two-handed warhammer feels powerful, the slam spell I have makes such a good sound and it feels like it's impacting with force. The animations of the spells, the weapon combos, the movement, everything feels like it has a weight to it, but also smooth at the same time. Bravo to the dev team because I don't think I've played an ARPG that feels this good to play. Diablo 3 feels like you're just cutting through enemies like butter, where Wolcen feels like you are beating down each individual enemy with powerful and impactful blows and spells. It's an epic gameplay experience that I'm sure will only get more legendary once the game fully releases. Wolcen Lords of Mayhem releases on February 13th on Steam. It's currently priced at $30, but once it releases, the price will go up to $45. I'll leave a link to the Steam page and any other relevant links down in the description if you wish to check out Wolcen for yourself. Let me know down in the comments what you think of Wolcen if you played it, and if you have any questions about the game, ask away and I'll do my best to answer them. But that's it for me. Make sure to follow me on Twitter for more loot-related news, opinions, and just general gaming stuff. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, give it a like as it helps the video get out to more people, and consider subscribing for more epic loot news on Wolcen. Until next time, have a legendary day, night, afternoon. Peace out.